Hello students, this is CA Pragnesh Kanabar, Senior Audit Faculty at CA Final and CA Inter level with an experience of teaching thousands of students, coming up with this video of peer review and quality review. Peer review, quality review applicable from May 22 attempt onwards has gone heavy change, especially the topic of peer review. Because of the revised statement of peer review, which was signed in July 2021 by our Honorable President of the ICAI and which has been now included in the revised module of the ICAI. So I want everyone to stay focused so that in a short time and with the notes that I have created, we can cover up this whole amended statement of peer review. Let me tell you, this is not just a revision lecture. From base level till the end, every single discussion of peer review will be done. Okay, first of all, what is a peer review? Very simple concept. The work done by one practicing CA will be examined by another practicing CA, and this whole examination is monitored by the ICAI. That is why peer review. When work of one article is checked by another article, work of one employee is checked by another employee. Similarly, work of one practicing CA will be checked by another practicing CA, and this whole examination will be monitored. It will be done under the supervision of the ICAI, and that is nothing but peer review. But let me tell you, this is a very rough explanation. If you want a detailed explanation, stay focused for the next 10 minutes and you will be very clear. Peer review, it is an examination. Examination of what? Of the quality of assurance services which are provided by practice units. Practice units is nothing but practicing CAs. Since beta practicing CAs, they are proprietor firm, LLP, that is why we are using this word practice units. Okay, and we are just trying to ensure that we are using the phrase which is used by the peer review statement. So let us try and understand this line. It is an examination of quality of assurance services provided by practice units. Assurance services. That means the very first thing that you have understood is that this whole exercise of peer review is not interested in non-assurance services. Let me be very clear. Non-assurance services are excluded from this scope. So if you are a practicing CA who is providing assurance service as well as consultancy services, or some other non-assurance services, the ICAI process of peer review, that means your work will be examined by some other practicing CA and they will focus only on the assurance services that you are providing. That is the first thing that you need to understand. No one is going to question you on how you have performed the procedures, why this is the materiality level set by you. They will focus more on the quality of the service. That means what are the systems of your firm, whether you are complying with all the professional standards, laws that are applicable to a particular assignment of assurance service. So it is an examination of quality of assurance services which is provided by practice units. But you need to understand the peer review structure. So the ICAI has issued a statement on peer review. The ICAI has issued a statement on peer review. Statement means mandatory. Whatever they have written, that is mandatory, and as I told you, the statement was revised in July 2021. So based upon this statement, the ICAI has created a peer review board. For every activity, the ICAI creates a separate board or committee. So they have created a peer review board. I will be calling peer review board as PRB. This peer review board, what do they do is, they select practice units based upon some selection criteria. They select practice units based upon some selection criteria. I will be talking about it. There is a specific criteria which is given inside this statement, how to select practicing CAs who are providing assurance services. Because every year, every practicing CA cannot be examined, right? Then who will conduct this examination? There will be a group of practicing CAs which peer review board will shortlist in advance, all right? And that group of practicing CAs which is shortlisted by the peer review board is called as panel of peer reviewers. Now, not every practicing CA can be a part of this panel. They have given eligibility criteria for this, all right. But you need to understand that peer review board will appoint peer reviewers based upon some eligibility criteria which we will discuss, okay. And these peer reviewers, they will conduct the peer review of the practice units. That is why it is called as peer review, all right. Person of similar level examining your work, peers. So peer reviewers, I'll call them as PRs. PRs shall examine the practice units. But what of practice unit? What? Their walls or what? Their doors or what? No. They will examine the quality of assurance services which are provided by the practice unit. So students, when you look at this whole structure, obviously what are the points that strike your mind that you are going to study? First, who is this peer review board? Correct. Then, how practice units are selected? We want to know about this, how practice units are selected. Then, who can be the examiner? Who can apply to be a peer reviewer? What is the eligibility criteria? And then the major discussion, how exactly is a peer review conducted? Once a practice unit is selected and a peer reviewer is assigned, then how exactly a peer review is conducted, right from planning, execution to reporting. And at the end, what is the importance of this whole process? Okay, let me just tell you in one line why this whole process is important. Of course, to maintain the quality of services, to maintain some kind of supervision over chartered accountants, that's fine. But at the end of peer review, once your peer review is done, then you get a peer review certificate beta. And based upon that peer review certificate, you get assignments of listed entities and big assignments. So once you say that my firm is peer reviewed, then that adds some weightage to the quality of your firm, all right. Okay, that is why many practice units, they also want to voluntarily get peer reviewed, so that they can say that, okay, see I've got peer reviewed, all right. So that is the importance of this whole process. Now straight away coming to your exams, what are the points which are their favorites? First of all, what is the objective of peer review? Why this is being done? So you are not going to say your real objective. This is being done so that we can show peer review certificate and get good assignments. No, say that why peer review board is doing it, so that they can check whether the practice unit has complied with PET, professional, ethical, and technical standards. Whether practice unit has complied with PET, professional, ethical, and technical standards. What is the meaning of this word professional, ethical, and technical standards? All right. Can you please come to the next page? What is the meaning of this phrase? Professional, ethical, and technical standards. Accounting standards, AS, Ind AS, auditing standards, quality control standards, applicable financial reporting framework, applicable laws and regulations, idli vada, medu vada. Students, whatever you can think of which governs your particular assurance activity, that is professional, ethical, and technical standard. So if I'm conducting bank audit, just imagine how many things govern that bank audit, all right. That is a set of professional, ethical, technical standards. So whatever assignments I have performed, assurance assignments, peer review board wants to know whether I've complied with PET, professional, ethical, and technical standards. More importantly, they want to know whether practice unit has a proper system of quality control, including documentation of that system, so that in future they can demonstrate, they can show it that boss, we have provided a quality assurance service. Yes sir, yes sir. Never forget objective of peer review. Come on, fast. Objective of peer review to check whether practice unit has complied with PET standards and whether they have a proper system of quality control, including documentation, so that they can show it in the future the quality of their assurance services. Am I clear with this? Yes sir. What is the scope of peer review? In order to check whether a practice unit has achieved this or not, what is the coverage, the scope of peer review? All right. So peer review, obviously, as I told you, it applies to all the assurance services which are provided by practice unit. But let us say once a practice unit is selected, okay, then the assurance services which I've provided in the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, no, they can pick up any service? No, 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 no. The scope is confined. It is limited to preceding 3 years only. The scope is confined. It is limited to only preceding 3 years, maximum preceding 3 years. So once you are selected, your last 3 years assignment, and out of all the assignments that you have performed, assurance service assignment means audit review assignments, they can pick it up. All right, done, done, nice. The review shall cover. Now, whenever peer reviewer is reviewing, broadly he is interested in whether you have complied with PET standards, professional, ethical, technical standards. Then, what is the quality of your reporting? Whether you are covering all the points in the report which need to be covered. So, what is the quality of your reporting? Then, what are your systems and procedures for carrying out assurance services? Your systems and procedures for carrying out assurance services. Then, how are you training your staff, including your dragons, article and audit assistant, covered with article audit assistant who are concerned with assurance functions. Huh? Please understand. I am reminding this time and again, they are not worried about that your overall, all articles and all of them, how are you training them? They are worried about how you are training dragons who are going to deal with assurance functions and whether they have proper infrastructure, laptop, then compliance with all the council guidelines which deal with your assignments. You anyway study about these guidelines in professional ethics topic. All right. So I used to always say it in short, even earlier and even in this revised statement, these points are applicable. TDS over Priyanka Chopra. So they are worried about your training, documentation, systems, all right, systems, procedures, and compliance with PET, professional ethical technical standards, compliance with council guidelines. So they are worried about TDS over PC. So you can just remember it in short in that manner, and do not forget that they are always worried about your assurance services, and it is limited to preceding 3 years. All right. Yes, sir. We are moving ahead now. In order to understand the scope, it is very important that you should know about professional ethical technical standards, about which I've already discussed with you. Then I've been saying this since the beginning now. Already it's been how much, 12-13 minutes, and I've been saying this since the beginning that peer review is always focused on the examination of quality of assurance services. So it was very clear that non-assurance services, non-assurance engagements, they are going to be excluded over here. All right. So we need to prepare CAs for CRED. All right, CRED is a big business now. We need to prepare CAs for CRED. Students, this is just a simple code. You can create your own codes. You are very good at creating codes. My logical explanation is non-assurance engagements. Now, whenever we talk about non-assurance engagements, those are consultancy assignments, assignments related to preparation of some kind of data, or we are giving an expert advice on something, consultancy again, an expert advice on something. So these are the assignments. Tax representation work, when we are representing the client in taxation hearings, please, we are not providing any assurance activity over here. Okay, so as you can see, prepare tax returns. Then C for compilation of financial statements, A for assisting the client, and then again C for consultancy. If you're worried about compilation, it is nothing but preparation of the overall FS. Then R for representation before various authorities. E for expert, EE expert. So testifying as an expert witness, providing some kind of expert opinion on something. Again, it's not an assurance activity, but it's just giving consultancy services. Again, expert opinion on points of principle and stuff. And then D for due diligence, valuation of business, valuation of prices. So such kind of activities. So prepare CA for CRED. So you can just remember this, at least remember CRED, preparation, consultancy assignments. They are always non-assurance. Just remember CRED properly. All right. Okay, we are moving ahead now. Applicability of peer review, one of the most interesting discussion. Selection criteria. All right, as I told you, every year every practicing CA who is providing assurance service cannot be examined. So obviously peer review board and the peer review statement, they have created some kind of selection criteria. Now all the practice units who are into assurance activities, they have been divided into two categories. One is level 1 practice unit, and then obviously second category is level 2 practice unit. Sir, how are they divided into level 1, level 2? I will come to that, just give me 5 minutes. But most importantly, why are they divided into level 1 and level 2? If you are a level 1 practice unit, we will discuss how you are considered as level 1. But if you are a level 1 practice unit, then you are selected once in 3 years. And if you are a level 2 practice unit, then you will be selected once in 4 years. This is the maximum cycle within which you will be selected. But as I told you, many practice units voluntarily want to get themselves peer reviewed so that they have a certificate to show for. So if a practice unit wants to voluntarily apply, it can apply it. Peer review board needs to respond within 30 days to such application. Peer review board wants to conduct peer review at shorter intervals, possible. It is possible to conduct peer review at shorter intervals. Shockingly, there is one more point, that if client of practice unit, the auditees, the clients of practice unit, if they want to apply to the peer review board that we want this practice unit to be peer reviewed, that such kind of applications will also be accepted by the peer review board to respond within 30 days to such applications. And whatever we are discussing over here, the criteria that we will discuss, these criteria can be modified by the peer review board, but only and only with the prior approval of the council. All right. So everyone, before I start discussing level 1, level 2, please understand this is a broad cycle, once in 3 years, once in 4 years. It can be done at shorter intervals, right? So that is why I have given some important clarifications. Whatever I said now is over here. Okay. Classification of practice units into level 1 practice unit and level 2 practice unit. Okay. When are you considered as a level 1 practice unit? If you just apply common sense, level 1 practice unit is selected beta once in 3 years. Okay. So when will you be considered as a level 1 practice unit? Obviously when you are into some big assignments. Because can I say that if peer review board wants to select you once in 3 years, that means they are more worried about you. They are more worried about you because you are into bigger assignments. Let me tell you, peer review board is interested in all assurance services. But majorly they are interested in statutory audit service. And that also statutory audit of big companies. That is why if you are into statutory audit and that also statutory audit of some big companies or companies which can have an economic impact, you will be under level 1. See, technically saying there are 10 criteria, I can just keep on reading and I can say okay, this is level 1, but you need to understand the logic behind it so that it becomes a little easier for you to remember. Now if you see in level 1, it is all about statutory audit, statutory audit, statutory audit, statutory audit, statutory audit, statutory audit, statutory audit. So the moment you get in question internal audit, even if it is internal audit of Reliance Industries Limited, at least you will not be a level 1 practice unit. And if you are not level 1 practice unit and you are providing assurance service, but if you are not under level 1, you are under level 2. Very simple. If you are providing assurance service, if you are not covered by level 1, you are level 2. Technically in the textbook they have given the criteria for level 1, level 2 separately, but what you need to do is you need to remember who will be considered as a level 1 practice unit. Am I clear with this? Yes. So all the level 1 practice units are all into statutory audit, statutory audit, statutory audit, statutory audit and statutory audit. Now statutory audit of which entities? Statutory audit of which entities? Okay, focus over here everyone. A practice unit which has undertaken any of the below assurance service, even if you have one client, all right, from the below, then you will be considered as a level 1 practice unit. Okay, and do not worry beta, all of this data is updated continuously with the peer review board and with the ICAI. So they know that which clients we are serving, so they can classify us into level 1, level 2. Okay, now our full focus will be on understanding every single criteria. First, if you are into statutory central auditor, if you are the statutory central auditor of any bank or insurance company. But now listen to me. When I say statutory central auditor, means you are the ultimate parent auditor. There is no other auditor above you. So you are not the auditor of branches or subsidiaries. So if they ask you if you are the auditor of a branch of a bank or branch of an insurance or division of an insurance, you will go into level 2. All right? Yes. Okay. Next, statutory audit of entities preparing financial statements as per Ind AS. If entities are preparing financial statements as per Ind AS, obviously it would be a big entity, and if you are conducting their statutory audit, you are under level 1. Statutory audit of asset management companies, mutual fund. Statutory audit of listed entities, whether listed in India or outside India, whether equity listed or debt listed. But if you are a statutory auditor of listed entity, you will be covered under level 1, irrespective of its turnover also. Then statutory audit of public interest entities. Students, public interest entity is still an evolving concept. All right. So in 2021, this concept has evolved a lot much. And there is a list of public interest entities which will be published by National Financial Reporting Authority and the ICAI, which can have an impact on the economy. So irrespective of their status, whether they are listed, unlisted, if they have an impact on the economy, they will be considered as public interest entities. But that's a big definition. I will go later on into it. But once if they say that this body corporate or this trust is a public interest entity in exam, and if you are conducting statutory audit of PIE, public interest entity, then you will be considered as level 1 practice unit. Okay. Then statutory audit of entities which have raised funds from PBF, public banks, financial institution, or which have raised DC, donations, contributions greater than 50 crores. So basically, statutory audit of entities which have raised funds greater than 50 crores, whether it is in the form of loan or whether they have raised donations or contributions. All right? Yes. Okay. Statutory audit of entities having net worth. Any entity, whether it is listed, unlisted, does not matter. If it's listed, anyways, you are under level 1. Even if it's unlisted, net worth greater than 100 crores. Or turnover greater than equal to 250 crores, you will be under level 1. Then statutory audit of entities which are funded by central government, state government schemes greater than 50 crores. What you can remember is that whatever are the limits over here, at least they are in the multiples of 50. All right. Then statutory audit of NBFCs having deposits greater than 100 crores. So if NBFCs, which have deposits less than 100 crores or 100 crores or less than 100 crores, you go into level 2 if you're conducting their statutory audit. Statutory audit of central or state public sector undertaking. This is a very important point. Central or state PSU and central cooperative societies, but they are not worried in every single central state PSU or every single central cooperative society. They have given some criteria: turnover greater than 250 crores or net worth greater than 5 crores. So they are interested in some big entities which can have some impact on the economy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For your ease of studies, what I have done is, if you see, there are total 10 criteria over here. Any of these assignments, if you have done, you are into level 1. Easy to remember. All of these assignments are statutory audit. All right. Then the first 5 I have grouped where there is no numerical limit, but it is purely based upon the nature of the entity. Purely based upon the nature of the entity. Whereas the last 5 are purely based upon numerical limits. So I have done that much working. Otherwise, yes, you will have to paste this somewhere, take a photo of this, and keep it as a collar image of your near and dear ones. I hope you understand whom. And you can just keep on reviewing. Yeah, today level 1 practice unit is calling me naughty. Okay. Now we move ahead. So let me just test you. Internal audit of Reliance Industries Limited. Let us say you are conducting only one assignment, that is internal audit of Reliance Industries Limited. Where are you? Level 2 practice unit. Let us say you are into statutory audit of SBI's branch. You are only conducting bank branch statutory audit. Where are you? Level 2 practice unit. All right. So whatever is not getting under level 1, but still if those practice units are providing assurance services, they are under level 2. Level 1 selected once in 3 years and level 2 is selected once in 4 years. Am I clear with this? Yes or no, sir? Yes, sir. And if this peer review can be done at shorter intervals, please do not forget that point. Okay. Now we'll be winding up some other points. Who is a peer review board? Peer review board is the board which is handling the whole process of peer review. This board is formed by the council of the ICAI. As you can see, I have jotted down all the points over here. So no filling the blank types notes over here. Maximum there are 12 members which are to be appointed by the council of the ICA. Out of this 12, at least 50% of the members should be from the council of the ICA only. The balance 50 can be from other fields and areas of expertise that council may nominate. All right. Chairman, vice chairman. Chairman, vice chairman must be from the council members. The term of 2/3 members. So maximum are 12 members, correct? And term of 2/3 members will be for 3 years or end of their term in the council. See, if the term in the council itself has ended, then since you are no more a member of the council and you were in the peer review board in the capacity of your council membership, then if you lose your council membership, then obviously your term under peer review board is also over. So this is very this is the point of common sense. Term will be term of 2/3 members will be for 3 years or end of the term of the member in the council, whichever is earlier, obviously for 2/3 members. Chairman and vice chairman can be rotated every year. If there are any kind of casual vacancy, resignation, removal, death, unsound mind, to be filled by the council of the ICAI. One important restriction is, if you have seen professional ethics, then you will understand this point. Member of disciplinary committee or board of discipline. Disciplinary committee and board of discipline, both of them are judicial authorities, quasi-judicial authorities under Chartered Accountants Act 1949. They are the ones giving decisions, whether a member is guilty or not. And since they are the ones who are doing judicial functions, obviously members of the discipline committee or board of discipline, they cannot be into the executive functions of PRB, and that is why they have said they cannot be the member of peer review board. All right, yes. When we talk about peer review boards meeting, at least one meeting in every calendar quarter, and the quorum is at least 1/3, that is not less than 3 members. At least 1/3, not less than 3. So total, if there are 9 members, tell me, 1/3 will be 3. Okay. So at least 3 also finished. That criteria is also fulfilled, and 1/3 criteria is also fulfilled. One meeting in every calendar quarter. In absence of quorum, meeting to be adjourned. In absence of quorum, meeting to be adjourned. They will wait for half an hour, then adjourn the meeting. PRB to submit report to council before every meeting. All right. So please be careful over here. If they want to put up a question on peer review board, they can do it. Although if I am the paper setter, there are many more interesting questions from peer review that can be asked. But if they want to put up a question on peer review board, then it's fine, it's their wish. Okay. Next, who can be a peer reviewer? One of the most frequently asked and extremely important for your exams. This is their favorite. Even in the earlier peer review statements and even in this peer review statement, I think this will be their favorite in the upcoming attempt also. Who can be the peer reviewer? All right. If you want to be a peer reviewer, you must be a CA in practice. Remember one thing. Now, there are 2 categories. One, people who are practicing since so many years. And one, people who have shifted from industry to practice. They may be senior chartered accountants, but they were into job for lots of long years and they have shifted to practice. So currently they are CA in practice, but they do not have a very huge, big practicing experience. So there are 2 categories. If you are a CA in practice, you should have audit experience of at least 7 years. And if you are a person who has moved from industry to practice, then in that case you should have 10 years of audit experience in industry plus means 3 years of audit experience in practice. So currently you must be in practice. All right, 10 years of experience in industry plus 3 years in audit experience in practice, or at least 7 years of audit experience as a CA in practice. Then if you want to be the peer reviewer, you need to finish the training which is given by peer review board, and you need to also clear the prescribed test as the tests which are prescribed by the peer review board. All right, yes. Disqualification. So even if you have this experience, still you may not be taken in the peer review panel if you have any disciplinary action or proceeding which is pending against you. If you have been found guilty of professional or other misconduct under CA Act 1949, even in your history, if you have been found guilty, you cannot now be appointed as a member of the peer review panel, means as a peer reviewer. Convicted by competent court within or outside India. If you have been convicted by court within India, outside India, obviously they are worried about offense which involve moral turpitude, means all the offenses where you got morally corrupt are covered over here. Convicted by court within or outside India, boss, you are a corrupt person morally, you cannot be taken into the peer review panel. All right, so you cannot be the peer reviewer. All right, so these are general disqualifications. In any of these cases, you won't be appointed as a peer reviewer. Now, there are some specific restrictions with respect to a practice unit. Let us say, let us say that you have fulfilled this criteria and you are not disqualified under the general disqualifications. So, you have been taken into the peer review panel. Let us say that ABC practice unit is going to be peer reviewed. And if you have a business relationship with ABC practice unit, let us say you are officially, see, because you're also practicing CA, so you're also into the market, and let us say you are getting assignments from ABC practice unit. Do you think that you should be given the peer review of ABC practice unit? No. Let us say under the partners of ABC practice unit, you have done your articleship. When you were an article, under them you have done articleship. Can I say that you may pay back your loyalty now? All right. In fact, articles should be given the chance to review, once they become practicing CA, to review the work done by their principal, and trust me, they will come out with best observations. All right. So there are some PU specific restriction. PU means practice unit specific restriction. You should not currently, when you are getting appointed as a peer reviewer for a practice unit, you should not have any obligation or conflict of interest in the practice unit. But let us say in the last 2 years, you had some, you had conducted some assignments with that practice unit, or that practice unit used to give you work, then still there will be some amount of influence. Currently, you may not have any obligation or conflict of interest, but you had your past relationship, right? So you should not have accepted any assignment from that particular practice unit 2 years before appointment, and even after appointment for the next 2 years, you will not accept this any kind of assignment from that particular practice unit. And more importantly, you should not have undergone articleship training under any of the partner of practice unit. So these are some PU specific restrictions. All right. Now, if you want to be appointed as a peer reviewer, you need to give declaration of confidentiality that you will maintain utmost confidentiality of the working papers of practice unit, and whatever other declarations PRB requires from time to time, you are going to submit those declarations. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But many times what happens is that when you want to conduct peer review of large practice units, you may feel the need that you need some kind of assistant with you. So can peer reviewer take help of a qualified assistant? Yes. Now these are the conditions. Allowed maximum 1 qualified assistant, and that qualified assistant should be a chartered accountant. Hello, not your article. So allowed max 1 qualified assistant. Qualified assistant must be a chartered accountant. QA means qualified assistant. Qualified assistant must be from the firm of the reviewer, from the firm of the peer reviewer, either as a partner or as employee. Peer reviewer must inform the peer review board and practice unit in advance the name of the qualified assistant. Even a qualified assistant has to sign the confidentiality declaration, and more importantly, qualified assistant, this is one of the requirements where I'm expecting a question. Qualified assistant should not have any kind of direct communication with the practice unit and the peer review board. It is the peer reviewer who will coordinate with the peer review board and the practice unit, and not the qualified assistant. Are you hearing me? Yes or no, sir? Yes, sir. Okay. We are moving ahead now. There are various stages of peer review. Obviously, based upon the selection criteria, first you understood that the first is the selection of practice unit and appointment of the reviewer. All right. Now you know who is a peer reviewer and everything. Then obviously, once the peer reviewer is appointed, the next stage is the planning stage. After that, of course, there will be some execution work which needs to be done. All right. Then at the end, report needs to be given, and I want students to do a lot of working over here. All right. And that is why I am going to make you work a little bit more on this stages of peer review. So that is why you see some blanks over here. Okay. But obviously, after all the stages are over, at the end, what you want from the peer review board is a peer review certificate, and we will come to that at the end. So come on, let us be very quick. The first stage of peer review is the selection and planning stage. So first, obviously, there will be selection of practice unit and appointment of the reviewer. Now, when the practice unit is selected, you see peer review board and practice unit, they are having some kind of communication. First, it is the peer review board who is going to notify practice unit about its selection. That bro, you have been selected for peer review. Then peer review board is going to send some questionnaire. It is a set of standard questions which the peer review board wants to ask. These questions peer review board is going to send it to the practice unit. Then practice unit is going to fill up the questionnaire and submit it to the peer review board. Needs to finish off these things within 7 days. Then name of 3 reviewers. This is little interesting. This stage may sound like Shaadi.com over here. Name of 3 reviewers will be recommended by the peer review board to practice unit. What? Name of 3 reviewers will be recommended by the peer review board to practice unit. Why? And look at this, more madness. Practice unit shall select 1 out of 3 reviewers that, Papa, I like this boy, and inform peer review board within 7 days. Why? Can I say it is very much possible that I am a practice unit from Mumbai and you are also a peer reviewer who is practicing in Mumbai. And by mistake, let us say if we just give it to the peer review board, the whole process, then peer review board assigns you for my peer review and both of us are strong competitors. Can I say you will try your level best to find some faults and you will be prejudiced, you will be biased in this verification? Yes, yes. That is the reason that one reviewer is selected by the practice unit and sent to the peer review board that let this person conduct peer review. We do not have any kind of biasness over here, and even this person is not our competitor. So that is better. That is why mostly practicing CS from Kolkata, they conduct peer review of the practice units who are in Mumbai. There's a lot of cross connection, and here and there's a lot of movement for this particular assignment, because it is obvious when one practicing CA is conducting review of another practicing CA, it is required, boss. Okay, so that is why this process is there. It is not madness, it is logical. If all the 3 reviewers, this is not given over here, I'll just give you a clarification. If all the 3 reviewers which are recommended by the peer review board are not acceptable to the practice unit, then practice unit can request peer review board for a fresh set of 3 recommendations, correct? But you don't write these things, not required. So practice unit shall select 1 out of 3 peer reviewers and inform peer review board within 7 days. Peer review board shall intimate the reviewer, means now peer review board will tell to the reviewer, listen, your relationship has been fixed. That practice unit said yes for you. For you. The peer review board shall intimate the reviewer and seek his consent within 7 days. Alright. So whatever days you see, it is from the previous step, those days they start counting. So let us go ahead now. Now the reviewer and the practice unit, both of them know that they are going to get into this peer review. So let us talk about the planning stage. See, now peer review board will take a back seat for some time. All right. And it is the practice unit who is going to submit the information to the peer reviewer as asked by the peer reviewer. Look at this. Information to be furnished by practice unit to the peer reviewer within 2 days of the peer reviewer's consent. See, where did the previous stage end? You have been selected by that practice unit. Yes, the practice unit said yes. Then peer reviewer will give consent. Within 2 days of receiving the peer reviewer's consent, practice unit to submit it to the peer reviewer the following information. Which information? Their Aadhaar card, PAN card? No, sir. Copy of questionnaire which was given to peer review board. Call back. You remember this? This questionnaire which they filled up and gave to the peer review board, a copy of that. Then if there are details of any legal proceedings, so Q for questionnaire, L for legal proceedings against the PU, partners of PU or qualified employees of PU, legal proceedings of the last 3 financial years preceding the period of review. Okay, till date. Then what is the information to be furnished by the peer review board? See, sometimes it is the peer review board also who will help the peer reviewer with more information. Now, whatever assignments are performed by practice units, assurance assignments, stay focused. Whatever assignments are performed by practice units, all the assurance assignments, naturally they will sign on the report. When they sign, they generate UDIN. When they generate UDIN, all the information gets accumulated at the UDIN portal. So peer review board can directly contact the UDIN portal, the UDIN directorate, who will have lots of information about the assignments done by that practice unit. And they can take out the data that, okay, practice unit has signed these 20 audit reports and these many points. Okay, 20 audit reports, these many review reports, these many certificates. And that UDIN directorate will give the data to the peer review board. Peer review board will give it to the peer reviewer. It helps peer reviewer. So peer review board may call for relevant information from UDIN directorate and may share that information with the peer reviewer. Obviously, now See, this is still planning stage. When I say planning stage, means this is off-site review. Peer reviewer has not yet visited the practice unit. So peer reviewer needs to give a little bit of brief idea to the practice unit about what kind of services he is going to review, whether this year he is going to review stat audit, internal audit. One point of clarification over here. I just recollected one doubt which students ask in my face-to-face coaching. I hope that you're okay with the speed. I'm going a little faster because students want to finish off their syllabus. Otherwise, if you read this couple of times, things will be clear. Now, we did discuss about the selection criteria. All right. Level 1 and level 2. Just 2 minutes, beta. Level 1 and level 2. Now, in level 1 practice unit, you are a level 1 practice unit when you are performing any of these assignments. So, somewhere students, they develop one different understanding. So, let us say if I am performing statutory audit of listed entities and I am also performing internal audit of some other entities. All right. Now, can I say that since I am into stat audit of listed entities, I will be level 1 practice unit? Yes. And I will be selected once in 3 years? Yes. Once I am selected, then the peer reviewers, they can examine any of my assurance service. This whatever you see over here, beta, this is purely and purely just for selection criteria. Are you getting my point? Yes, sir. After that, once you are selected, after selection, any of your assurance service can be reviewed. Okay? Okay? I hope that you are clear with it. That is why this point comes up in the planning stage. That is why this point comes up in the planning stage. Selection of sample by reviewer. So reviewer needs to select a broad sample that we will be verifying these 5 assignments of your statutory audit and 4 assignments of this internal audit. This much we are going to verify this time. All right, this is a very big sample. Normally they take a couple of assignments, but they need to inform this to the practice unit before they actually visit the practice unit, so that practice unit has some time to accumulate all the records and show it to the peer reviewer. All right, look at this selection of sample by the reviewer. Once practice unit has given all of this information to the peer reviewer, then peer reviewer within 7 days of receiving information from the practice unit, they will select the sample within 7 days and they need to inform it to the practice unit. Should select a sample of assurance services that he would like to review. He should inform this sample selected to the peer review board and practice unit that I am going to verify these many assignments this time. He must give at least 5 days time, MCQ, to practice unit to ready their records for on-site visit. The peer reviewer and practice unit shall cooperate to ensure that entire review is completed within 60 days from the date of notifying the practice unit. It's a very big change. In the old peer review, it was 90 days. So be careful. Within 60 days from the date of notifying the practice unit about its selection for review. All right. Yes, sir. Okay. So this is the particular point, selection of sample by the reviewer. 2 major things. He must give 5 days time to the practice unit to ready the records, and this point clearly says that within 60 days from the date when the practice unit was notified, from that date within 60 days the whole peer review needs to be completed. All right, entire review needs to be completed. So be careful, huh? This is the timeline for the entire review to be completed. All right, okay. I hope you are reading and understanding actually what is given over here. We go ahead now. I want you to see this from the textbook also. I mean, from the module, I'm showing it straight away. Yeah, execution stage. So now peer reviewer would want to visit the practice unit. Fine, visit the practice unit. They can visit practice unit head office, branch office, or any other location. This on-site review, now when peer review has visited on-site review, when he is actually at the practice unit office, should not extend beyond 7 working days based upon the size of practice unit. So it should not extend beyond 7 working days. It can be done within 3 days, 4 days also, but it should not extend beyond 7 working days. Be careful about it. Okay, fine. Now, do you remember normally in audit assignments, what do? We try to understand the client's internal controls. what are the systems implemented by them, so that we can understand what can go wrong, how much can go wrong, where there could be error, where there could be fraud. Similarly, when peer reviewer, please understand, when peer reviewer is trying to understand that, okay, what should be the depth of his verification, he will also try to obtain an understanding of the various systems and controls that we have. Understood this? So peer reviewer will carry out a review of following controls of the practice unit. I am OSO. Who am I? I am OSO. He would want to know, peer reviewer would want to know, what are the controls over independence? How practice unit ensures independence in case of assurance assignments? Then, how practice unit how practice unit maintains its staff, maintains its staff and stuff. How do they go for it? Look at this: maintenance of professional skills, standards, their standards, maintenance of professional skills, standards. So this is purely how do they ensure quality of the assignment. Are there any training programs or so? Look at this: office admin work. Then they are also worried about office admin work. Then is their staff supervised? Do they try to develop their staff? Staff supervision and development. Then obviously, whenever their staff needs outside consultation, have they appointed any kind of expert or so? Sorry for my handwriting, just trying to fit in things. I'm also saying it so you can just hear and write it out. So outside consultation, if their staff requires at any point of time, then have they actually given this outside consultation? Students, these things were also discussed in essay 220, and they also form a part of SQC1. For example, how to maintain independence and how to ensure outside consultation of the staff. These things were discussed in essay 220. Now you will be thinking that why is this person going into so much of details and giving references of standards? We will just remember I am also, na? We will just remember I am also. Great, then you can have that kind of shortcut attitude. It's okay. But when you then look at the question bank, okay, which is given after a quality review in this PDF. This is a peer review PDF of the ICI. When you look at the question bank, I'll just give you a brief. They have clearly put you in a situation, a practical situation, that you are the peer reviewer. You can see it in the question bank of the module. You are the peer reviewer and you want to review the controls which are implemented by the practice unit over its independence practice. How are you going to review it and what are the points that you will consider? Now, I would want to know whether the engagement partner in this practice unit, whoever is the engagement partner, whether he has taken the responsibility for maintaining independence. Do they ask their staff and their articles and their employees not to invest in the share securities of the entities which are being audited by them? Now, do they maintain some kind of independence level? Does the firm have some kind of independence policy? Is it being followed? What if it is not followed? What are the actions being taken? So boss, do not take any point lightly. When I say that these things were discussed in essay 220 SQC1, it is better to actually go over there and revise these points if you have the time to do so. If you do not have the time to do so, at least be ready that they can question you on the independence part and the consultation part, which was discussed in essay 220. There can be a separate examination question. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. So peer reviewer needs to do a little bit of review of the controls. Then he will understand, okay, this firm has nice controls over IAM also. Na? So we need not go into too much of details. So this helps them in understanding what should be the depth of their verification. Now, can I say that in the planning stage, peer reviewer already communicated what kind of samples he is going to review, what kind of assignments he is going to review. But let us say when he conducts a review of the controls, IAM OSO, and he understands that he wants to increase the number of engagements to be selected. Fine, he can do it. He can increase his sample size. That is okay, not a problem. So the number of engagements to be selected will depend upon will depend upon, look at this, the number of engagements to be selected over here will depend upon these points. What is the quality control system of the firm? Achha, what are the kind of assignments that they have done? Which assignments are more risky? Where they have charged more fees? The assignments where they have done, those auditee companies, were they involved in some kind of fraud? Understood this? The clients that they have audited, were they involved in some kind of fraud? So these are the points that they will consider, and then they will say, okay, we are going to verify these assignments, or they can increase the number of engagements that they want to verify. Not a problem. So the number of engagements will depend upon the standards of quality control that the firm is maintaining, quality control of the firm. Yes. Then what is the kind of service that they have given? For example, statutory audit, internal audit. Which one would you like to review? Of course, statutory audit has more risk. All right. So the nature of assurance service. The nature of assurance service. Then what is the methodology adopted by the practice unit? Same thing, the quality control that they have. Do they have a standard method for everything? Do they have a very well written defined method? So I'm not using this point as a separate point. Number of partners, members involved in assurance service. In which service they had a very big audit team? Yeah. So the size of audit team that is involved. This is a good point. Then the number of location, branches, offices, the size of the practice unit itself. How many branches, offices do they have? Size of the practice unit itself. And then obviously what was the fees charged by them, or what was the GST paid by them? Assignments where there is high fees involved, they would like to review that how much you have earned and why you have earned this much. Yes. Note about sample change. I told you peer reviewer can change the sample than what was selected in the planning stage. Peer reviewer can change the sample from the sample that was selected in the planning stage. That is okay, not an issue at all. All right. Yes, sir. I have given a little bit of fill in the blank type of notes so that you at least write some very sensitive things that need to be written. All right. Okay. And you are awake in this whole video. Then, because I want to teach the students who actually want to practice. So review of records. Now, this is all execution going on by the peer reviewer. All right. Now, when he is into on-site visit, he would want to review the records, correct? He would want to test the controls behind the documents that the peer review, that the practice unit has created. Let me tell you, practice unit will have to show the working papers, because I know that working papers are property of auditor. All right. And he may show the working papers at his own discretion, but unless there is a legal compulsion to do so, and the whole peer review process is based upon statement on peer review, which is mandatorily to be done. All right. Yes, sir. So the practice unit will have to show its records, and peer reviewer will verify it. Now, when he is verifying it, he is interested into test of controls, test of details, how this document was developed, and what are the details in this document. Okay. So compliance approach. The compliance approach is to assess whether, whenever I say compliance approach, means some kind of test of controls, whether proper control procedures have been established by and followed by the practice unit. Compliance approach is nothing but whether practice unit has established sufficient internal controls to comply with professional, ethical and technical standards. Standards, auditing, accounting standards, applicable laws. So whether practice unit has taken enough efforts to actually establish internal controls to comply with professional, ethical and technical standards. Now listen to me, boss. Okay. Following areas shall be considered. That means when he is conducting test of controls, he wants to know about these areas. Understood this? Whether practice unit has established internal controls, means practice unit itself should have controls over how they maintain their records, how they evaluate the internal controls of their clients. All right. How do they perform test of details? How do they ensure that the clients have given presentation and disclosure? Acha, how do you derive the conclusions? How do you report? Understood this? So we want to know that how practice unit has complied with PET, professional ethical technical standards. So we want to know that how practice unit has conducted in all their assurance assignments, how practice unit has conducted test of controls, test of details, reporting part, conclusion part, disclosures part. All right, so you can write any of these points as you can see in the screen. Just take a photo of this, and you can write any 5 points from the module that we are worried whether practice unit has followed these, whether practice unit has performed these activities or not, whether practice unit has performed these activities or not, and that also efficiently. I want students to write this. All right, okay, any 5 points. Little bit working I will always make you do, that is always my style, because if you stay invested in a topic only, then you are going to get the returns. It cannot be like I just spoon feed you for every single point. Actually I'm doing it, but little bit work you have to do. When I say substantive approach, see, peer reviewer is just not going to verify the controls of the practice unit, correct? He's also going to check the records that are actually there. Oh, so when you verified inventory, what kind of records you have maintained? Okay, okay, all right. So substantive approach, that is test of details. This approach requires a review of assurance working papers. So he's going to test the working papers. Okay. In order to establish the extent of compliance, whether the service is performed as per professional, ethical and technical standards. So very simple, he is going to verify whether practice unit has internal control systems and procedures to ensure that every single critical activity in an assurance service is done properly, so that PET standards are complied. And for that, whatever records they have maintained, we will just verify those records as a peer reviewer. So compliance approach is nothing but test of controls of the practice unit, and substantive approach is nothing but the test of working papers of the practice unit. Now they can ask you this: please in brief explain the approach of the peer reviewer. So please ensure that you are explaining these things. All right, the compliance approach and the substantive approach to be followed by the reviewer. For once, if you also want to read about 3-4 points, if they ask you about approach of the reviewer, then you can just take it up from here also. But it is the same approach that I'm discussing. They have just given it over here, that how a peer reviewer approaches an assignment. So whenever he is verifying the controls and the details of the practice unit, how he is approaching the assignment, that is what is given over here. Okay, yes sir, fine. Now students, we are coming to the most sensitive stage, and that is the reporting stage of peer review. Peer review is a process that is going on since what, now around 20 years or so, correct? Time to time the peer review statement has been revised. But since old course and even in the new course, reporting stage of peer review has been questioned n number of times. So obviously I cannot take any kind of compromise from you when it comes to reporting stage of peer review. So everyone, we will compare it with the module and we will ensure that we are writing correct statements over here. Okay. First of all, in a peer review report, what is expected? That peer review will comment whether practice unit has a quality control system that can take care of IMOSO, and most importantly, whether practice unit has complied with professional, ethical and technical standards. So in the reporting stage, the peer reviewer needs to report upon whether practice unit has quality control systems over IMOSO over these areas, and then according to him, whatever assignments he has verified, whatever assurance assignments he has verified, whether practice unit has complied with professional, ethical and technical standards. All right, yes. Now this is the main reporting that is required from the peer reviewer. But I am going to discuss what are the different possibilities and permutation combinations that can happen. So let us say after the completion of execution stage of peer review, which you just studied in the previous page, there are two possibilities. Let us say either peer reviewer is satisfied with our quality control systems and stuff, and he has no more clarification and is very happy. So either peer reviewer is satisfied with the firm's system of quality control and there are no clarifications required. And there are no clarifications required. See, if he is satisfied and there are no clarifications required, fine, then what he can do is he can just submit a clean report to the peer review board and with a copy to the practice unit. And just finish it off, man. Let us start reading. Let us make ourselves comfortable. Okay. After completing the on-site review, the reviewer before making his report to the board shall communicate his findings to the practice unit. If in his opinion the systems and procedures are deficient or there is some non-compliance or he needs some clarification. That means what is the reverse of that? If he thinks that there is no deficiency and there is no clarification required, then he can just submit a report to the peer review board with a copy to practice unit, that's it. But if peer reviewer is not satisfied with firm system of quality control or he needs some clarification, there are some queries, observation, then in that case, peer reviewer should first submit a preliminary report, some kind of draft report to the practice unit. All right, please, try to understand the practice unit, take the responses, and then you give it to the peer review board. Don't just say, peer review board, their systems are not great. Wait, man. Okay, so peer reviewer will submit some kind of draft or preliminary report. PREL I have written. You can just write the whole word, preliminary report, to the practice unit. Now look at this. The practice unit shall within 5 days of the date of receipt of findings make its submission or representation in writing to the reviewer. So practice unit within 5 days will give its response, submissions, representations, whatever it is. Now let us take a practical example. Peer reviewer tells practice unit that since you are performing high risk assignments and you do not have some kind of backup ready with you, this is not great, you should have IT system, server, backup, and we are not happy with the data that you are maintaining. Practice unit says that, okay boss, we understand your recommendations and we will implement it soon. If you can just give us a couple of days, we will try to implement it and finish it off so that you can incorporate things. So if peer reviewer is satisfied, great with this response. But if practice unit says, hello, we are performing these assignments since many years and we don't need your advice. Oh my God. So there are two possibilities. Either peer reviewer is satisfied with the response or peer reviewer is not satisfied with the response. Okay. If peer reviewer is satisfied with the response, then in that case, peer reviewer can just finish it off, submit a report with PU's findings with practice units, with practice unit submissions to the peer review board and finish it off. If peer reviewer is satisfied, then he can submit his report plus practice units submissions to the peer review board with a copy to practice unit and just finish it off. Okay. However, if peer reviewer is not satisfied with the response, then in that case, oh my God, Now peer reviewer is going to submit a modified report, means report with some negative remarks to the peer review board, of course with a copy to practice unit. Look at these points. At the end of on-site review, or if the reviewer is satisfied with the reply received from practice unit, he shall submit a peer review report to the board along with his initial findings, response by practice unit, and the manner in which the responses have been dealt. A copy of report shall also be forwarded to the practice unit. However, in case reviewer is of the opinion that the response by practice unit is not satisfactory, the reviewer shall accordingly submit a modified report to the board incorporating his reasons, why he has given negative remark, what were the submissions by the practice unit, everything. The reviewer shall also submit initial findings, response by practice unit, and manner in which those responses have been dealt. A copy of report shall also be forwarded to the practice unit. Now, peer review board has got the modified report. Now, peer review board will just go through that report and will say, okay, practice unit, you are wrong over here. You should implement the systems which are suggested by the peer reviewer. There will be a follow-on review. Means one more time peer reviewer will visit your premise and conduct an examination whether you have implemented his recommendations or not. Are you clear with this? Yes, sir. Say yes. Okay, fine. So peer review board may order, PRB may order a follow-on review. Means one more further examination will be done. They may send some other peer reviewer also, it is fine, but a follow-on review will be done. Look at this. Follow-on review. But can I say practice unit needs to be given some time to implement the recommendations, correct? That is why follow-on review should be done after a period of 1 year from the date of issue of report. But if the board thinks that no, these are big deficiencies, you need to implement and you need to act ASAP, all right? ASAP, you need to act on this and you need to implement. Your follow-on review will be done after 6 months. If the board so decides, the period of 1 year can be reduced but shall not be less than 6 months from the date of issue of the report. So follow-on review will be done generally after 12 months from the date of issue of report. Exceptionally, board will decide, and it can also be done after 6 months. All right? Yes. Now, I told you why this whole peer review was being done, so that we get some kind of peer review certificate. We get some kind of peer review certificate. Now, peer review certificate. After the reporting stage of this peer review, there are two possibilities. If everything has gone fine and there is no follow-on review, then in that case, peer review board will give a certificate, PRC, peer review certificate, finish it off. But if there is a follow-on review, then they will tell to the practice unit that, sorry, we are not in a position to give you a peer review certificate over here. First, finish off whatever we have asked you to do so, and only then you can be given a peer review certificate. Oh my God. So after the reporting stage, on receipt of the peer review report, the board, there will be two things. The board shall within 3 months of the receiving the report, either issue a peer review certificate to the practice unit mentioning the validity period, or inform the practice unit that a peer review certificate cannot be issued along with the reasons thereof, as well as inform practice unit about the due date for conducting a follow-on review. Correct? So in case of follow-on review, it is possible that peer review certificate they are not issuing right now. So they will give a due date that by this date ensure that your peer review is being done. All right, and only after that you will be given a peer review certificate. Now, what is the importance of this peer review certificate? Once your peer review is done and you have been given a peer review certificate, ensure that before it expires, the next peer review is done, because if the peer review certificate has expired and you haven't got a new peer review certificate, then whatever documents you have signed in the interim period, one more time, whatever documents you have signed in the interim period will be considered as invalid. So practice unit cannot continue with the existing certificate whose validity has expired. All documents signed by practice unit during the intervening period will be invalid. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the practice unit to complete the peer review of the firm and submit all the necessary documents at least 1 month before the date of expiry of previous certificate. So before the expiry of the previous certificate, at least 1 month before that, you need to ensure that the peer review of the firm is completed and all the documents have been submitted. All right? Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Now, Mostly we do it 4-5 months before that only, because again peer review takes 60 days, then it's a long process. But at least 1 month before the date of expiry of the previous certificate, ensure that the peer review is done. Now there are other points, obligations of peer reviewer and practice unit. This is very simple, that in the whole assignment of peer review and practice unit, both of them should cooperate with each other and give the data, and peer reviewer should ensure that he is not taking copies, he is not taking, this green one is very important, he is not taking extracts of the practice unit's workings. And boss, please be careful that peer reviewer, whatever are his own workings, okay, whatever are his own workings, he is maintaining those workings at least for 18 months, so that in future if peer review board wants to examine those workings, he has to submit it. All right. Okay, so these green ones are the obligations of the peer reviewer, and these black ones are the obligations of the practice unit. There is only one good point which I saw in the obligations of practice unit. Other points you can just understand is this one, that practice unit is supposed to translate its records in English or Hindi if requested by peer reviewer. Happens, no beta, peer reviewers from north, when they come to south, now South India is very nice calm place with its own traditions. All right, so sometimes there are practicing CS who feel great to create working notes and stuff in their mother tongue, and I really respect when people follow their mother tongue, it's a great thing. But just for the convenience of the peer reviewer, so that it is done properly, you may have to translate it into English or Hindi as per his request. All right, you may have to translate it into English or Hindi and give it in a legible form, so that peer reviewer is able to perform the peer review. All right, yes. Again, peer review is not a guarantee, it is done on a selective basis. Okay, so there can always be some control system weakness which may not be detected. So that those are the inherent limitations of review. So students, whatever you see over here, you can ensure that you are doing this properly and you are revising it. That was my whole discussion from the amended statement of peer review as applicable from May 22 attempt onwards. Please remember one thing. If you do not comply with this peer review statement, that means you are violating something that has been issued by the Council of the ICAI, and you can be held guilty under Clause 1, Part 2, Second Schedule of CA Act 1949. If you want to check, go check professional ethics. Remember, you may also lose your degree over here, because second schedule is a schedule where the punishments are severe. All right. Okay. On that note, I am signing off. I hope you have a great attempt. And if there is any doubt, you can get in touch with me through my app. The descriptions you will see over here. All right. Okay.